All right, guys, black is here. And, I keep seeing videos where people talking about GM engines. The folks are just driving down the road and the engine's supposed to just stop, and they're blaming it on the cylinder deactivation crap. I don't know that well about it because I really don't keep up with GM engines or cars. Ever since Ford come out with the EcoBoost, the V6 turbos, I've been paying attention to them. When they first come out with the V6 turbo, you had all different kind of old school YouTube technician telling people not to buy them because they're not going to last. Scotty Kilmer set up and talked about they burn more gas than larger engine because they work hard and people got their foot in them. And the thing is this, he's wrong. He was wrong then. And the thing, anybody who have spent time around small turbocharged engines know better. Yes, they will burn fuel, but not everybody. You're not going to drive like the Fast and the Furious all the time. Like when I'm going to work, I jump on 285 from Flash Shoals Road, and I get up to about 75. I get in the fast lane, and I pretty much run 75 miles per hour until I get to Camp Creek, And that's what traffic rides in Atlanta in the left lane anyway. It's about 75 or 80 miles per hour. Now, at that speed, I'm not really burning too much gas. It's not, I don't think it gets, my F-150 don't get 26 mpg at 75 miles per hour. It'll get it at, I know I can get it at 65, right? But I'm not really trying to get 26 mpg, I'm trying to get to work. But when I get off at Camp Creek, and I take Camp Creek all the way to Austell, the speed limit is out there is 55. I usually run about 65 unless somebody is in front of me. There's a few lights out there. The point I'm making is you're not going to be hauling ass in the EcoBoost all the time. There's going to be most of the time you're going to be driving, creeping along. So you're not burning all that fuel that you would if it was a V8. People go, the V8 sound better. I will admit, yeah, they do sound better, but again, I don't give a damn about the sound. I want fuel economy, And the thing, when I bought my F-150 8 years ago, I bought it new with 29 miles, and it's got 112,000 miles now. The only problem I had with the engine was at 69,000 miles, a temp sensor went bad, a $20 temp sensor. And it would have been an easy fix if I had watched the right video, but I watched the wrong video and I took the damn intake off looking for the temp sensor, and I changed the coolant temp sensor instead of the cylinder head temp sensor. The cylinder head temp sensor was easy. One freaking socket, I think it's a 17 millimeter socket. It sits on the side of the freaking engine by the turbo on the head. But whatever. The point I'm making is this. The truck is at 112,000 miles. My turbos are fine. It don't burn much oil. It don't use much oil. It still get good fuel economy. I haven't had any problem. You talk about the intake valve gum up. Ford Make You Local showed a video of gummed up intake valve. It was just gummed up real bad. That was a bad engine. I don't know what the hell wrong with that engine, but it wasn't normal. But a lot of people assume that's what's going to happen with EcoBoost or any engine with direct fuel injection. And it probably will if you're somebody who don't keep the oil change. If you don't keep the damn engine running right, the intake valve probably do gum up like that. But anyway, what I'm getting at is this. I wasn't afraid of this engine. I was not afraid of the turbos going out. I wasn't afraid, not even slightly, Hell, Ford guy tried to sell me an extended warranty. I wouldn't take it. I mean, he hounded me 5 different times trying to, this is a very expensive truck. You need an extended warranty. It's a Ford. I don't need an extended warranty. Ford make good trucks. They're not going to make bull crap. You know? Chevrolet might. Ford's not. Dodge might. Ford not. Ford is a freaking Mercedes when it comes to American cars. Now, some people say, Mercedes ain't good car. Anybody who say that most likely don't own a Mercedes, okay? Anybody who say that, who used to own a Mercedes, were too broke to fix it, and now they hating on Mercedes. Mercedes is probably the most advanced cars you can buy. You know, probably. If it ain't, it's damn near close. You know, they had a lot of stuff before other people did. Drive-by-wire. I'm not sure about variable valve timing, but the damn sure had drive-by-wire anyway. I remember when they first put that in the car, and I was like, oh my God, that's not gonna work well, because I was thinking that you're gonna step on the gas and it's not gonna respond. And that actually happened, but it was a freaking international diesel truck that did that. And that's the only car I ever had. Well, it wasn't mine, it was a company vehicle. But getting back to it, I wasn't afraid of the technology. I love technology. And again, anybody who have spent time around turbocharged engines, love them. Nobody drives a turbocharged engine and go, I don't like it. You know, this is why I can't stand forums, but I go there to entertain myself sometimes. I was on a forum where it was talking about Toyota. Back in the mid-70s, Toyotas had some 4Runners that were 4-cylinder turbos. I bet y'all didn't know that. Yes, Toyota had some trucks that were 4-cylinder turbos. I've driven about 3 of them. Back when I used to steal cars, I drove a 4Runner turbo. I drove a 4-wheel drive pickup truck turbo, and I drove like a regular cab. Well, not a regular cab. It was like a King cab, 2-wheel drive turbo 4-cylinder. All right. But the point I'm making is, I was reading on the forum, and some guy, and I know this mother is lying. I know he lying. Talking about he had a Toyota 4Runner, and it was a turbo, and the turbo kept going out, and he just took the turbo off and drove it without a turbo. 100% bull crap. Now, you say, well, Blair, how do you know that? The turbo in them trucks did not boost that hard. Meaning, they did not boost that hard. You could barely feel them. The turbo, I think, a regular Toyota truck with fuel injection had like 121 horsepower. I think it was. And the turbo had like 127. It wasn't boosted that hard. It did have quite a bit of torque. I think it was like 175 pound-feet of torque. But it wasn't a lot of horsepower. You could barely, I think the damn trucks had a green light on the tack that would come on when the turbo kicked in. And if it was without the damn light, you almost couldn't tell because it was so weak. So the point I'm making, the turbo was that weak. It wasn't working that hard. But see, the person who left that comment didn't know that because they never drove one before. But that's how you can tell. That's how I can tell when somebody tell a lie. I listen to what they say. A lot of these vehicles, I've driven a lot of vehicles, okay? A lot of mainstream vehicles I've driven. So I can listen to the way a person talk and tell whether or not they tell the truth or not. I'm pretty damn smart when it comes to cars anyway. You know, and I've had so many people to ask me, you know, on my channel, people leave a comment and I would tell them you lying. I would remove the comment. People ask me, how do you know when a person is lying? I'm like, dude, I've been doing cars for a long time. I'm 53 years old. I didn't just start messing with cars when I bought a freaking laptop in 2009. I've been dealing with cars my whole life. I know how they run. I know how they drive. I know how they handle. And when somebody don't tell the truth, I can tell. You know, it's people who lie. When they talk about a car, they talk about the negative stuff almost all the time. They talk about the negative stuff. Why? Because that's all they read about is the negative stuff. It's kind of like a Grand National, Buick Grand National, Regal, or whatever. You never hear people talk about how the turbo in first gear is strong. The car is strong. When it shifts to second gear, I noticed like, damn, this thing seems like it pulls harder in second. Found out it does actually pull harder in second. It makes more boost in second gear than it does in first. But you never hear people talk about that. It just, the turbo coupe, the Thunderbird turbo coupe, I drove a 5-speed. It was the same way. Well, not the same way, but you pull off in first gear, the turbo kicked in at 25, all right? According to the little gauge, you got like 10 pounds of boost. Well, at 4,500, you got more boost. I think it would go up to like 14, and the car would kind of pull harder, but you never hear people talk about it. I ain't never heard nobody talk about it. I didn't even hear the magazines talk about that. Because I read Car and Driver and stuff before I actually drove one, and they never talked about that. And I asked somebody one time who claimed they had one, and I asked them, what RPM did the turbo kick in? And they go, oh, it kicked in to like 3,500. Dre, y'all have a good day.